Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I hope that for the next hour and a half you will excuse my voice as it's gone on vacation and left me a little destitute here for vocal power. But I'm going to get through what I have to say with your perseverance and understanding. I think that it is incredible that over the last few years, meetings of this sort have gone from a few people in a living room to large theaters like this, crowded with people. And it's happening not only here, but all across the nation, which means that some people are waking up. Not enough. Believe me, not enough by a long shot. But there seems to be a wave, a vibration, an awakening happening with some people in this country. And hopefully, with your help, and with a few things that I will try to impart to you, thank you. Thank you. Tonight, I'm going to talk to you about a disaster that is looming upon the horizon, one that no one in this room can escape from, no one in this country will escape from, and in fact, no one in this world will escape from. If we in this country, and we are the only country on the face of this earth that can stop this disaster from happening, are able to awaken from our slumber and bring the New World Order to a screeching halt. This must be done, and it can only be done by the citizens of the United States of America. You see, we are the sum total end result of all of humankind's efforts throughout the centuries, throughout all of history, to rise himself above the gutter and stand as a free, responsible, sovereign king in his own right. And we are the only people on the face of the earth who have ever achieved that end point, to be able to walk in a divine state of grace and not be the property of someone or something else. You see, because until this nation came about, no human being ever in history was ever free. They were always the property of some other person or country or thing or organization. They were a slave, or they were a bond servant, or they were an indentured servant, or they were a serf, or they were just property. What we have here is the highest point of human achievement and evolution that has ever occurred on this earth, in this country. And it makes me very sad to say that we take it for granted, so much so that we are literally handing it away on a silver platter. And I'm going to tell you that unless we are successful in stopping what has been planned for many centuries and what is now being brought to fruition, that this next election in this country will be the last free election ever held in this country. That's how down to the wire we are. And I will explain why I believe that this is so as I go along. But first, I have to tell you, as I always do, every time that I speak anywhere, is that you have to be cognizant of a few things in order for you to do the right thing when you leave here. Number one, you must make a determination tonight that you will not believe me or anyone else that you ever hear again in your entire life, unless you can take what we say and by your own efforts prove it to be right. You must do this. You must understand that you can never, ever again elect into any office in this nation or in your city or in your state anyone who has ever been a member of the defense industrial complex or the intelligence community, no matter what their standing is and no matter what they tell you at this time, including me. That you must absolutely do. You must stop re-electing professional politicians to public office, for they have sold this nation down the tubes. Since the end of World War II, ladies and gentlemen, the intelligence community has been working as an entity toward the furtherance of the interests of the United Nations, not this country. The New World Order is taught to intelligence operatives. It is the goal to bring about, and the reason is given, that it will end forever war between nations, a one-world government. It is taught in the military academies. It is taught in the War College. So understand this. You can never trust any one of us to be on your side, no matter what we say. And I'm going to tell you that I am on your side, but still you must not trust that, ever. You must go out and you must learn to seek and find the truth yourself. Because the deception that is running rampant, not only in this country but in the world today, in order to create the atmosphere to bring about the one world government called the New World Order and enslave all of us in a system of cashless debt controlled by a computer. And believe me, that is the most merciless system of imprisonment that you will ever see, and I will explain that also. Please, make no mistake about it. Almost everything that you're being told from every angle today is a lie. You have been lied to for the last 40 to 50 years, and I can prove most of that. If you're paying attention, and if you really understand what's happening, you know that you're not getting the truth from the press and haven't been getting the truth for the press for a long time. And if you didn't believe that until recently, or if you still don't believe it, examine the Iraqi war. Let's all look at that. What transpired there made us willingly and voluntarily send our sons and daughters to a foreign country to repeat a mistake that we made in Vietnam many years ago. And believe me, it's not over. If you're thinking, Bill, it's not a Vietnam, it's over. It's not over. I said it would not be over when it started. I predicted that it would happen when it happened many years ago. And I'm telling you now, it is not over. Not by a long shot. Now look what happened. From the very beginning, you heard lies. Number one, we were sending troops to Iraq, or to Kuwait, because we could not afford $26 a barrel for oil. That was the first excuse given. The second one was, no, it's not about oil. No, that was a mistake. It's because Saddam Hussein's not going to stop. He's going to go and overrun Saudi Arabia. And then the next one was by James Baker, who said, no, it's not about the price of oil. It's not about Saudi Arabia. Come on, folks, it's about jobs. We're going to send your sons and daughters over there so they can die so you can have a job. Then Bush, when people really got angry about that statement, held a press conference, and what did he say? He said, it's not about oil, it's not about Saudi Arabia, it's not about jobs, folks. And I quote, somebody just doesn't get the message. It's about the new Hitler in the Middle East. It's about naked aggression. Does everybody remember this series of events? And that is exactly how it went. If the president didn't know why we were sending our people over there, why in the world did we get behind him? Or did we? From the very first of it, all you ever saw was assent. Yes, let's do it. We're for it. It's the best thing for America. These young people are going to defend our country. Were they really? No. Had nothing to do with defending this country whatsoever, no matter what you've been taught. When they got there, all we saw was interviews with happy troops. Never saw an unhappy troop. How many of you spent time in the service? I did. How many of you spent time in the service ever saw that many happy troops? Back home, during 800 interviews on network television, there was only one dissenting opinion. One out of 800 interviews. All across this country, there were major demonstrations. I don't mean little demonstrations, folks. I mean major demonstrations in all of the cities in this country. Did you see that on the news? No, you didn't. What happened to the one brave journalist who elected to risk his life and stay in Iraq to report what was happening there when he came home? Peter Arnett, what happened to him? He was ostracized. He was branded a traitor by the President of the United States. Why? To suppress free press, to cement the last bit of manipulatory control over the journalists of the United States of America. They made an example out of him. And the message was, you do what we tell you or your career is ended. That was the message. And believe me, the journalist heard it. You're not getting the truth on television. You haven't been getting the truth for many, many years. How about all these Vietnam veterans who swore that they would never send their sons or daughters to repeat the mistake that we made by going blindly thinking we were defending our country to a foreign nation that had nothing to do with defending our country? They sent their sons and daughters. They betrayed themselves. What I'm telling you is not pleasant to hear. And some of you are going to become very angry with me before my talk is over, and that is good. Because maybe if you get angry enough at me, you will go out and say, I'm going to prove that son of a bitch wrong, and in the process of trying it, you will prove me right. And you will become an ally. And I hope that that happens. If you look at the membership of an organization called the Council on Foreign Relations and its offshoot sister organization, I should say child actually, the Trilateral Commission, and make no mistake about it, the real power resides and has always resided in the Council on Foreign Relations in this country. You will see that most of the high-level bureaucratic positions, most or all of the cabinet-level positions, and most of our elected officials in this country belong to one or both of those organizations. Now you might ask, Bill, what's so bad about that? What's so bad about that, ladies and gentlemen, is that both of these organizations are secret organizations. They claim otherwise, but that's not true. They are secret because it is forbidden for any member to even take notes during a meeting. It is forbidden for them to talk about anything that was discussed in any of those meetings. And if they do, they are instantly terminated from the organization and ostracized by the in crowd, the political establishment, the Eastern Kings of America is what they really would like to be called. Their goal, through diligent research, many of us who look into these things have found that their goal has not been so secretive because they publish a book, they call it a periodical, but it's actually a book called Foreign Relations. And you can get that in any large magazine stand. And in that book, over the years, or that periodical as they call it, and you can subscribe to it, by the way, without being a member, they write articles about what their view for America and for the world is. And in almost every issue for many years, their view and their goal for America and for their world has been a one-world government, a strong United Nations, disarmament of all other nations under the UN, Now think about what that means, because I meet a lot of people all the time that say, Bill, what's so bad about all the nations disarming and being under the United Nations? Wouldn't that ensure that we would have peace everlasting? Are you kidding? Has the nature of mankind changed? You take the power from here and you put it somewhere else. Has the nature of mankind changed? No matter what we like to think of ourselves individually, man is an imperfect being. And I'm not talking about religion here. We all know it. We all know what we've done to each other, and we all know what we've done wrong from the day that we can remember up until now. And we know that we haven't always done it for a good reason. And we can go back in history and we can look at what we've done to each other throughout history, and we can see that most of the most terrible things that ever happened on the face of this earth were all done in the name of doing good. For instance, in Europe, in one single day, 60,000, it was over 60,000, but I'm going to say 60,000 to be safe. 60,000 human beings were slaughtered by the Catholic Church in one day. I'm not castigating the Catholic Church or Catholics. I'm citing an example in history of how, in the name of Jesus Christ, 60,000 people were killed, supposedly for good. And I can go on and cite many, many other examples throughout history of the same things that have happened. If we give up our power, if we give up our sovereignty, what that means literally is that our Constitution no longer applies. We are no longer protected by the Bill of Rights and the other articles and amendment to the Constitution. And we will come under the United Nations Charter, and I'll bet you there may not be more than one person in this room who's ever read it. Is there? Has anybody read it besides me? There's about 5 of us all total. Has anybody that read it, can you tell me, is there a Bill of Rights in the United Nations Charter? No, there's no Bill of Rights. Is there any protection for the individual under the United Nations Charter? No, there is not. In fact, I'll tell you some of the resolutions that have been passed by the United Nations since its inception. They have done away with Christmas. A UN resolution was passed doing away with Christmas. A UN resolution was passed making it the law of the world that you can belong to the religion of your choice as long as it's legal. How do you like them apples? What if the United Nations becomes into the control of people who are morally bankrupt, who are evil men or women? What would protect us if we had disarmed ourselves and gave our sovereignty up to the United Nations? I was so thrilled this morning when I got off of Kay's show on K-Talk, and right after Mills Crenshaw came on and had this guy on from the World Federalist Group. And he sat there and verified that their plan and their goals and their aspirations were exactly what I've been warning this country about for the last several years. And Mills Crenshaw was flabbergasted. He couldn't believe the guy was saying this. He kept saying, "Are you telling me? Do you really mean? Is that? You guys really believe that?" Let me tell you my track record, and I'm the only one in the world that has this track record, and I am not proud of it. My goal is to be absolutely inaccurate in forecasting, and that's the only time I'll know when I'm succeeding. I correctly predicted the parting of the Iron Curtain. No one else in the world did. I correctly predicted the fall of the Berlin Wall. I said that when the wall fell, the two Germanys would be reunited within 1 year, and they were. I predicted the invasion of Panama 2 days before it actually happened on talk radio in North Carolina. I predicted the war in the Middle East. In fact, I predicted that in 1988 and have been talking about it ever since. And I said that there would be a semblance of peace but it will not be peace for many, many years. I said that there would be a currency change this year, and lo and behold, there is a currency change going on right at this very moment. They are currently changing $100 bills. The new bills look very much like what you have right now, with some small differences. I'm telling you that sometime between now and the end of 1992, the United States economy is going to totally and completely collapse. I don't think that's anything to clap about, but it's going to happen. I am amazed that Americans did not become concerned when the savings and loans were deregulated, and then all of a sudden you could get loans for things you never heard of getting loans before. And people like George Green was running around the country setting up shell, phony, dummy corporations and getting investors to come in and invest. And then he would lay a foundation and get more investors to invest millions of dollars. And then he would just rape the dummy shell corporation and move on to a new one and leave those investors without a penny. George Bush's family was heavily involved in the rape of the savings and loans. So was the Central Intelligence Agency. It was all proven by the Houston Press, but it never went outside of the boundaries of Texas. It was never reported on the major network news or in any other papers in this country. And the entire savings and loan industry went under and nobody raised an eyebrow. And the FSLIC went broke and had to borrow money from the FDIC. And in the beginning, they said it's only going to be $4 billion, and I said at that point, I said publicly, and I still say, the savings and loan collapse will cost us no less than $1 trillion. No less. Now, the purpose of it was to bankrupt the FDIC, because the banks are next. There is no stopping it. There is no way to prevent it. There is no saving it. It has to happen. Because since its inception, since we went off the gold standard, off the silver certificates, when we consented to allow our money be represented by a piece of paper, a worthless piece of paper that represents the fact that somebody owes somebody some money, instead of backed by solid worth substance, that's when it all began. That's when the Federal Reserve quit printing money, folks, and began to lend money to the United States government in the form of credit. They didn't print the currency. It's lent in the form of credit. How does this work? Well, first, before it could become reality, they had to convince a new generation of Americans, because the old generation wouldn't buy it. Because when I was a kid, I can remember my grandparents and my parents telling me, Bill, the worst thing in the world is for you to ever be in debt, owe anybody anything, because when you owe somebody something, they own you. You are their slave. I remember that. And nobody that I ever knew when I was a kid, no adults ever owed anybody any money except on their house. That was the only thing that they had to borrow money on, because nobody had that kind of money. But nobody went down and took out a loan on a car. They saved their money and went down and paid cash. I never saw my mother pay an installment payment. If she wanted a new refrigerator, she saved the money, and they went down and bought it, picked it out and bought it and paid cash. They had to convince the new generation that credit was best. And how did they do that? They appealed to your prurient interest, your greed, your I want it now, the baby syndrome in all of us. Give me the candy, I'll work later. So it was easy. So we started opening up checking accounts and writing checks instead of using currency. And we began to get credit cards and use the credit cards instead of using currency. And when enough people began using these things, they made it mandatory for everybody else to use it, because then you couldn't check into a hotel or a motel without one. You couldn't travel without a credit card because you had no place to stay. And there are a lot of stores now that won't even deal with you unless you deal with a credit card. You can't order anything off of television unless you use a credit card. So they make it mandatory for you to use it because so many people already fell for it that you're in a trap. Now everybody's on credit. Nobody owns anything. Nobody owns a thing because you're still paying everything off, most people. And you're paying the interest on these things, this credit. The cash was never printed. The interest was never created, and that's why you keep getting poorer and poorer. In the most affluent nation in the world, you keep working harder. We keep getting smarter and smarter. We have the best technology there is, and we keep getting poorer and poorer all the time. It's a method of stealing our life's blood from us because we have to pay back to the Federal Reserve the money that was loaned to the United States government, and we have to pay the interest that was never created. And there's only one place it can come from, out of your sweat, your toil, your blood. You can only get poorer and poorer. Now, if you think I'm full of it, let me read to you a little thing here that is astounding. I'm astounded that America is not up in arms over this one thing alone, because I remember as a child, the one thing that was held out to me that was so valuable, especially when you get into the teen years, you begin to think about girls and a job and a future and a family maybe someday, was the American dream. And what is the American dream? I'll tell you what that is, and it's one reason why so many of our young children, our teenagers, and our young adults are wandering aimlessly, lost, because they've lost the American dream. It's out of their grasp forever. The American dream was to have a wife or a husband, 3 kids, 2 cars in the garage, and own your own home, and have a good job with a good company. Everybody remember that? That's the American dream. To be middle class, not poor, not rich, middle class, so that you work for 30 years and then you can retire and be comfortable. And you own your house. You have your family, Susie the cheerleader, and your 3 kids, your 2 cars, and your television set when that came along. Now let me read you a piece of news. It broke my heart when I read it. And I mean that literally. Picture bleak on buying a home, and this is from the Sunday, October 20th, 1991, the Arizona Republic, which is my state. What percentage of people in the nation would you say could not afford the median-priced new home? You're very close, right on, in fact. The answer is 70%, according to a recent U.S. Census Bureau study. Using 1988 data, the Bureau found that 61% of all families, 84% of unrelated individuals, and 95% of all renters could not afford a median-priced new home. Now notice what it says. If you weren't already in a home that you owned, or weren't a child of someone who owned a home, you were a renter, and 95% of all renters could not afford a medium-priced home. With resale homes factored in, the result was that 57% of all households could not qualify for a median-priced home. What is 57% of all households? It's most of the people who don't already own a home. Isn't that incredible? With even as low as a 5% down payment and a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, couldn't afford it. It shows the situation is much bleaker than we thought, said Michael Carliner, economist for the National Association of Home Builders. It's much bleaker than that. This is the result of a plan that was set in motion many years ago to destroy the middle class in this country and level the median standard of living of all the peoples in the world in order to bring about a new world order, a one world government. You see, because in the new world order there's only going to be two classes of people, the rulers and the ruled. There's not going to be any in between. These people are playing serious ball. All of this has to come to pass, and the New World Order must be solidified before the year 2000. Why before the year 2000? Because once the year 2000 clicks over on the calendar, in other words, the morning of January the 1st, the year 2000, all of the people of the world who believe in the prophecies of the book of Revelations and the prophecies of Nostradamus and the prophecies of all the other religious prophets of all the other religions in the world will stop believing in those prophecies at that moment. Because it's millennium fever, folks. And they're taking full advantage of it. Full advantage of it. They're following the book of Revelations and the prophecies of Nostradamus as a script, and they've even rewritten a lot of the prophecies, especially of Nostradamus, if you're paying attention. And you're being bombarded by propaganda from your own intelligence community. How many of you saw recently a program on TV called Nostradamus, the man who saw tomorrow? Let's see a show of hands. I'm talking about the one narrated by Charlton Heston. Let's see the hands. Now let me explain to you something about Charlton Heston. Charlton Heston has a top secret QSI clearance. He makes all the training films for the intelligence community and the defense industrial complex. Hollywood has long been a partner of the defense industrial complex. And those of you who lived through World War II know exactly what I'm talking about. In that program, you saw the old Nostradamus, the man who saw tomorrow, chopped up. The one that was narrated by Orson Welles was chopped up, respliced together, with Charlton Heston taking the place of Orson Welles and narrating the movie. At the end, what happened? It builds up to the Battle of Armageddon, and the beast, the Antichrist, is in the east. And who is he? He's a man with a blue turban. And who do they show in the movie? Saddam Hussein wearing a blue beret. And what does Charlton Heston say? As soon as this Hitler, this tyrant, this Antichrist is deposed by the coalition of UN forces, we will have 1,000 years of peace. And it shows the whole world coming together and coming out as one. AT&T, one world, one card. Wake up. You've been so stupid for so long. That movie was propaganda aimed at you exactly as Hitler aimed propaganda at Nazi Germany. And don't think it was anything else. And you're being bombarded with it on a daily, and I say again, daily basis. The media sold out a long time ago. Any reporter who dares to print or tell the truth loses his job. You had a man on Channel 4 News here today who was the only man in this entire nation who dared to show high version of the Zapruder film showing William Greer turn around and shoot Kennedy at point-blank range on the 12 o'clock news as a headline feature, and he is no longer with that station, is he? He was fired. Bubs Hopper tried to get it on hard copy, and she was fired. 7 radio talk show hosts have been fired immediately after having me on their radio show. Now, they're not doing this because I'm some crazy loony nut. They're doing this because they don't want you to hear what I have to say. They don't want you to see what I have to show you. You see, if all these shows about the Kennedy assassination were truly objective, wouldn't they print all theories, all versions? Wouldn't they show what I have to say? But they won't, will they? And they haven't, and they still won't in the future. because what I'm telling you and showing you is what really happened. But that's for you to decide. And for those of you who have been reading books lately and have read something about me in a new book that is derogatory, I want to put that to rest right now as a lie. This is from the Assassination Symposium on John F. Kennedy in Dallas, Texas, sponsored by the Assassination Organization in Dallas, Texas, that is there as a museum all the time. In this, it has Robert Groden's own press release as to his history. And I want to quote to you. Robert Groden, co-author of High Treason. Groden created the famous optical enhancement of the Zapruder film. He was a consultant to and testified extensively before the House Select Committee on Assassinations. Right here, folks. So what you're reading in James Bogart's new book is a lie. I do my research. I don't listen to what other people tell me. And I never say anything I can't prove. Ever. Robert Groden is an establishment agenteur who is attempting to confuse you and keep you from learning the truth about the Kennedy assassination. He has claimed since he first began his research career into the Kennedy assassination that he is the world's leading, foremost expert, independent expert on photo analysis. I am stating publicly here, and I've stated it before, he is a liar. He has no education in photography whatsoever, has never worked in photography in his whole life, has never been to school on photography, has no degrees in photography. How do I know this? I checked. I even called him and asked him. You see, but nobody else did that. Even the House Select Committee on Assassinations didn't do it. They hired him in 1976 to view the Zapruder film and tell them what it contained, and he blatantly lied to Congress and, in my estimation, committed an act of treason when he said that William Greer never took his hands off the wheel. Now, I didn't know this until just the other day, but Colonel Greitz published in his book that Robert Groden did not testify to the House Select Committee on Assassinations, and that I lied about him and that I'm a charlatan. Now, I want you to make up your own minds, ladies and gentlemen, who the charlatan is. And if you'd like to see William Greer take his hands off the wheel, come by my booth and view the Kennedy assassination tape, and you can see for yourself. Now, for the people of the world who are religious, no matter what church you belong to, and it doesn't matter to me because I'm a strict constitutionalist, I believe that we all have the freedom of religion. And I believe that no matter what your religion is, you are entitled to practice that religion, and I am not entitled to criticize you for that. But I believe that I am entitled to criticize you if you are neglecting your responsibility to the rest of us as a citizen of this country and allowing the New World Order to come about because you believe that as soon as the New World Order comes, Christ will soon be following. So we're not going to challenge faith. We're not going to fight the New World Order. We may suffer a little bit, but soon we will be with Christ. I would venture to say to you folks that I don't believe that Jesus Christ, our God, our Muhammad, our Buddha, or any other deity or Messiah or hero that you worship that you think you're going to meet up to with in the next world is going to smile at you and welcome you in with open arms if you did not oppose their enemies. To the LDS Church, I would say this. You have quoted throughout the history of your church that Joseph Smith declared that the time would come when the Constitution would be in danger of an overthrow. And the Joseph Smiths, and said he, if the Constitution be saved at all, it will be by the elders of this church. This quote is from Orson Hyde, 1858, Journal of Discourses, Volume 6, page 152. My message to you, the elders of the LDS, the Mormon Church, is get off your butts and help us save the Constitution before it's too late. The war against drugs is not a war against drugs at all. It's a war against us. It's a war against the Bill of Rights. You notice that the war is being conducted against users, not against the source of drugs. Now, you've been told that the source of drugs is something other than what it is, and I want all of you to close your eyes now for a moment while we go through a little exercise here to try to let you see what the source of drugs in this country really is. And I think after we go through this, you will no longer have any doubt in your mind whatsoever where these drugs are coming from. Everyone close your eyes for a moment, if you will, please, and imagine on your eyelids a map of the United States and all its possessions. And in that map, put a dot everywhere where there is a town or a city in this great country of ours. Now, if you're like me, you've got so many dots there you couldn't count them in a couple of weeks, because that's how many towns and cities there are in this great country. Now, understand while you're looking at those dots, project yourself into one of those small towns or one of those large cities, wherever you wish, and see yourself walking up to any street corner that you wish to walk up to in those towns or in those cities. And understand at this moment that you can buy any amount of any drug that there is on the face of this earth as long as you have enough money to pay for it at any time, night or day, any day of the week, of any month, of any year. Now understand and realize what kind of a buying power does it take to buy that much drugs? What kind of an organization does it take to distribute those drugs? But not only to distribute them, folks, but to distribute them in such a manner that every town and every city always has the drugs it needs whenever it needs them all the time. And then it's going to take somebody with a lot of guts to stand up and tell me that it's those Colombian drug lords bringing them in with little airplanes and cigar boats across the Gulf of Mexico. I know where they're coming from and have known for many years. It's the military and the Central Intelligence Agency and the entire intelligence community, as a matter of fact, and certain so-called patriotic organizations outside the government that are bringing the drugs into this country and selling them to finance the black projects and the formation of the New World Order. And the amount of money that they bring in is beyond your wildest dreams you cannot imagine. And it is all guarded, protected, and hidden behind the veil of national security. Now, there's three reasons those drugs are being brought in. One is it produces tremendous amounts of money that no one has to account for, and they can use it for anything they want. Two, it is a form of euphemistic slavery. You see, if you have someone addicted to something and you control the source of supply and the price, you control that person forever. So as long as they have the poor and the minorities, and the people in here who are minorities, Hispanics, blacks, you better listen to me, because you're scheduled for extinction if you don't listen to me. You are in their control when your children and your men and your women are on drugs. You are no threat to the establishment, but they use you to threaten another establishment, and that is the middle class. Crimes committed by blacks or on blacks in black neighborhoods, but the fact that all this crime is going on. See, when you see the statistics, it doesn't tell you that. So you get scared and you say, oh, we want more control, more police, more laws, forget about search warrants, forget about rights, throw them in jail, kill them. But don't threaten my little white middle-class neighborhood. It is you who are begging them to destroy the Bill of Rights. And that is the third reason for the drugs in this country, to create an aura of crime that will force the middle class to beg for the destruction of the Bill of Rights. And that is exactly what is happening. You've already lost the Fourth Amendment. How many of you did not know that? Everybody in here knew that? I don't believe it, but I'll accept it. The Fourth Amendment is gone. You know, you see, the reason I don't believe it is I really honestly and seriously don't believe that most people even know what the Fourth Amendment is or was. I know that most people don't own a copy of the Constitution, and most people beyond that have never even read it. The Fourth Amendment was your guarantee of protection from unreasonable search and seizure and the right to habeas corpus. If you don't know your Constitution, you better learn it. So you've lost one very important freedom already. You're no longer safe. If they want to break down your door in the middle of the night on any pretext that they want, they can do it now, and it's been ruled legal by the Supreme Court. Why? Because Americans begged for it. And because when they did it as test cases, nobody protested. Middle-class America said, yeah, get them, throw them in jail. Not realizing that the same weapon can be used against you. You see, if you take away one man's freedom, you take away every man's freedom, including your own. And that is the height of folly. I hear all these inane arguments about the second article and amendment to the Constitution. Inane, stupid, asinine, the most ridiculous things I've ever heard supposedly being debated by intelligent, educated men and women. Well, we have a right to go hunting. Bullshit. The Second Amendment was so we could protect ourselves in our home and protect our property. Bullshit. The NRA is standing up for the gun owners' rights. Bullshit. When you join the NRA, folks, you have registered your guns. You know, sometimes I just want to say a long string of cuss words, but I don't dare. Understand that. When you join the NRA, you have registered your guns. Is the NRA standing up in Congress and calling the people who want to subvert the Constitution and take away our rights? Are they calling them traitors? No, the NRA is not doing that. Do they argue the real constitutional issue that the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed, and that is the main clause, the main substance of that article and amendment? No, they don't do that. Are they arguing the point that the right to keep and bear arms was given to us for one reason and one reason only, and that was to protect us from a government that might conceivably oppress us in the future? No, they don't argue that either. So what the hell are you supporting them for? And why are you electing those people up to represent you if you are a member of the NRA? Why aren't you discussing the real issues? Because these are the real issues of the 90s. It's not POWs and MIAs. It's not any of the things that you're involved in. It's whether or not this nation is going to remain free in the next century, or whether you're going to march into the New World Order as a slave, and those are the only issues before you today. And I venture to you right now, I submit to you, that if you are devoting your time and efforts to any other issue, you are selling us down the river. There are no other issues. Most people can only devote their substance, their time, their money to one real issue. Tonight, the subject of my talk is that issue. It's this country. You see, folks, because the Constitution of the United States of America is this country. I don't know what you ever thought it was before, but when you leave here tonight, you better understand one thing. This country is only one thing. It resides in that document. It resides in the articles and amendments to that document. When you amend the Constitution, you amend this country. When you change it, you change this country. If you take away a part of the Constitution, you take away a part of this country. If you destroy it, you destroy this country forever. Forever. No one has ever been given freedom back once it's been taken away. No one has ever had freedom in this world but us. You say, well, the English are free? Bullshit. England is a socialist country. Socialism is not freedom. There's no other peoples on the face of this earth who are free but us. Socialists are children. They are people who grew up, ventured out into the world and found it too dangerous, too scary, too threatening, and they ran back to Daddy. And they said, Daddy must protect me. Daddy must give me medical care. Daddy must guarantee me a job. And if I lose my job, Daddy must guarantee to pay me until I find another one. Which really means I'll stay out and collect all I can before I have to go back and work. Socialism is daddyism. Socialism is childhood, a return to childhood. Free men and women must walk in a divine state of grace on their own 2 feet, accepting nothing from anyone except as a gift of charity from their fellow man in times of need, and it should be done by the community, not by the government. You see, because what happens when you go back home to Daddy and you eat Daddy's food and you sleep in Daddy's bed and you have to ask Daddy to borrow his car? You must be home when Daddy says you must be home. You must do the chores that Daddy tells you to do. You must contribute so much of your money, if you have any, to Daddy as a sort of token repayment, because that's all it ever is, isn't it, really? So you come under Daddy's rule. We are on the verge of socialism in this country right now, and we're almost over the brink. And I want you to examine yourselves and see if you're guilty of this. Have you asked the government lately to pay for your medical insurance? Have you asked the government lately to come into your town and take over something that you should be doing? Are you the ones paying the representatives that you send to Congress, or does Daddy pay them? Why would you expect someone to represent you when they're being paid by a foreign country? You see, because if you understand the Constitution as I do, there are 2 United States of America. One is with a little u, and a capital S. And that are the sovereign states of America that have entered into agreement for their mutual protection. And the citizens of those states are sovereign kings in their own rights, subject to and with full rights guaranteed them by the Constitution and the Articles and Amendment thereof. The second is the United States of America with a capital U. It is the federal democracy which resides in the District of Columbia, which has no constitutional rights and is subject to whatever rules or laws Congress cares to pass. I know many of you don't know about that, and that United States is a foreign country. When you elect someone in your state and you send them to Washington and that foreign country gives them their paycheck, why in hell should they represent you? I'll tell you what, if you hire me to come to work for you, and this lady down here in the blue is paying me, who do you think I'm going to work for? I'm going to work for her. I'm going to do what she wants me to do so that I make sure I get my paycheck. When this country was set up, it was set up in this manner. The citizens in a community took turns going to the state house or to Washington to represent their constituents. The community paid their way, paid them a stipend while they were there, took care of their family and their business while they were gone. Now, do you think that person had a vested interest in representing that community? You're damn right he did. How many representatives and senators today do you think have a vested interest in representing their community? None. So stop expecting them to. They're not doing anything that you wouldn't do if you were in their shoes. And don't be a hypocrite and tell me that that's not true. I've lived too long to believe that. And I've seen too much to believe it. I have seen young men raised in a church and taught the most decent things all their life stand beside me on a patrol boat in the middle of a river and kill people for no reason at all. I'm sick of hypocrisy and lies. And that's what I hear on most of the time. We must begin to live as we profess we want it to be, or we are doomed. And I'll take it another step further. Repent or be destroyed. And that's what it amounts to. And you can take that any way you want to. But I advise you to look those words up in a dictionary before you take them any way at all. Repent or be destroyed. We are on the brink of a disaster. And now we've come full circle. What is that disaster? The disaster is the destruction of the Bill of Rights, the Constitution. The United States of America will be relegated to just words in a history book, if they're allowed to even be in the history book at all. We will be under the thumb of a totalitarian, socialist, one-world government, with its head residing in the United Nations to begin with. But I don't think that's where it's going to end up. All peoples and all nations will be disarmed if we don't stop it. The nuclear weapons of the United States and the Soviet Union will be turned over to the United Nations along with the majority of our military forces. And they will serve as the world police force as we did in Iraq. And that was the real reason for the Iraq War, which, by the way, never occurred. There was no war. The Iraqi forces never fought. There were no huge battles. There were only poor, ragged, starving men trying to surrender, and a lot of them got shot down. A lot of civilians were killed, and 100% of our bombs and smart bombs didn't hit the targets like they said they did. Just like in Vietnam, over 70% of them missed their targets. Nothing has changed. But we were only shown the successful ones, the textbook hits. Manipulation. You see, because Saddam Hussein, with his arsenal of chemical and biological warfare, could have destroyed our troops within just a few days. And I've served in our armed forces, and I've been through NBC training. NBC is nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare training. And I'm telling you right now, in the desert, in the protective clothing that we would have to wear, our troops would not have survived. And that is not to degrade our troops, because I'm going to tell you, nobody's troops would survive. Nobody's. That's how terrible that kind of warfare is. The real reason for the Iraq War was to establish an international law that the old concept of sovereign nations was done and gone forever. And that the United Nations has the right now to pass a resolution and send a police force to enforce its resolution on any nation state. And George Bush said it on television and went right over everybody's head because nobody in this country really listens anymore. He said, and I quote, "No longer can any nation stand against a world united," unquote. That was the day that the United Nations became legitimately, under international law, the law of the world, and the Constitution was technically thrown in the trash can, although figuratively still up there pretending to work. If you have any illusions, go to court on any issue and bring up the Constitution to the judge, and he will tell you that if you bring up that word, the Constitution of the United States, again, he will find you in contempt, put you in jail. Really. Our country is almost gone from us, and I am almost at my wit's end. I have tried to be pleasant. I have pleaded. I've gone across this nation and delivered the same message countless times. I have been right in my predictions over and over and over again, and still no one is listening. I look at my little daughter and my heart bleeds for her, knowing what kind of world she will live in if I am not successful. And sometimes I cry big, huge alligator tears. And sometimes I get a bottle of scotch and go sit in my front yard and I just get smashed on my butt where I can't hurt anybody and just scream it out of me. I live in the country and I can do that. Because it hurts. It hurts terribly. I grew up a very idealistic young man in a military family. I was taught that you could do nothing better than to serve your country and that this was the greatest nation on earth. I was taught to use a weapon at a young age. I was told what the meaning of the second article and amendment was. I was given a copy of the Constitution by my father, and he taught me what it meant. And that doesn't happen today. Grab any kid off the street and ask him, what is the Constitution? And see what kind of an answer you get. I joined the military. I was in the Strategic Air Command of the United States Air Force for 4 years. I went into the Navy, volunteered for submarines. I went to Vietnam as a patrol boat captain, one of the very few enlisted men in the history of this country that have ever served as a captain on a combat vessel in time of war. And I'm very happy to say that under my leadership, I did not lose one single man despite almost nightly engagements with the enemy on the Takan River for over 6 months. I'm very proud of that. But I did it thinking that I was serving my country. And when I finally got in a position in the Navy where I could see the top secret documents that I was able to see, that shattered all my dreams and all my illusions and all the aspirations that I had had up to that time, I was shattered, ripped asunder, completely torn apart. And it took me many, many years to even come to grips with that information. Now I'm trying to impart it to a country that has had it so good traditionally that the concept, anything that could be wrong in this nation, is so totally alien to their belief structure that they're not listening. Despite the fact that I've been 100% accurate in all my predictions, despite the fact that on a daily basis in the news, on television, on the radio, they see the events unfurling that are destroying this country, and they know it is happening, and they still turn a blind eye to it. I want to tell you folks, no matter what the rest of you do, no matter what the rest of this nation does, on the day that the Constitution of the United States is suspended for whatever reason, I will take up my weapon from my closet, and if I have to march out alone, I will do so to reinstate it to its rightful place. And I hope that some of you are at least with me. You are seeing now visitations by Soviet officers to the United States, to our military installations, even the most top secret installations. You are seeing our officers making visits to the Soviet Union and doing the same thing. You may be surprised to know that we have Soviet officers attending our military academies at this very moment, and our officers are attending Soviet military academies at this very moment. Almost on a daily basis, Soviet planes land going in and out of Anchorage, Alaska. This is not hard to prove. You can all get this same information if you really want it. The next step, folks, is going to be a merger of the United States and Soviet Russia into the nucleus core of the New World Order, against which no other nation can stand. And that has been the goal all along. Do you know that right now there's a joint commission, a committee on education of Soviet educators and U.S. educators under the Rockefeller and Carnegie Foundations that decide what goes in our textbooks? It is true. Don't be fooled by what's happening in the Soviet Union, and don't be fooled by those who would tell you that it is the Soviet threat is what we're in danger of. The threat is from within. You see, because at the highest level, they're all members of the same club. What's happening in the Soviet Union and in Eastern Europe did not come about from an uprising of the people demanding freedom. It was handed down from on high. If you go back and look at what happened, the Russian people did not rise up and say, the economy is failing us, give us freedom, give us democracy. That did not happen. The Soviet economy did not fail. It couldn't fail. It was fail-proof. Backed by John D. Rockefeller, for one. Seriously, though, the ruble has never been floated on the International Monetary Exchange. So all these reasons they're giving you for the collapse of the Soviet economy is just more bullshit. You see, because if the ruble is not floated on the International Monetary Exchange, the ruble is always worth what they say it's worth. The economy is what they say it is. And it didn't fail until they were ready for it to fail. It only failed because they said it failed. Because it's time to bring about the New World Order. It's getting close to the year 2000. And they cannot lose their hold over all the people who believe in all the prophecies. Because if they lose that hold, those people might oppose them and they'll lose their New World Order. Watch television this Sunday. Listen to these idiots. Herd the sheep into the slaughter. And listen to the sheep yelling, hallelujah for the slaughter. Hallelujah. And then help me stop this, please. Please, for God's sake, help me stop this. We are down to the wire now. There's no more time left. There literally, folks, is no more time left. It's beyond being nice. It's beyond saying, I'll wait till tomorrow. It's beyond trying to protect your assets, because in doing so you're going to lose your ass. Understand that. It is time to begin to practice, really, what we have all along professed and what we go to church say we believe in. And what we think we feel when we say the Pledge of Allegiance or stand when the flag goes by in a parade. It is beyond that. It is at the point now to where you are being herded to the railroad cars and you are still saying, it can't happen to me, everything will be all right. When we reach our destination, we'll be given a new job and a new house. You are on your way now to the slaughter. You are the sheep. You are being driven. Make no mistake about it. Don't let your ego overcome your good sense. You're being manipulated and driven like sheep on a daily basis to the slaughter. Let me give you an indication of what it will be like to live in the New World Order. There will be no more crime. That is good. Because if there's no cash, nobody can rob you for your cash. If you don't have anything in the cash drawer, nobody's going to come in at 1 o'clock in the morning if you're the counter person at the 7-Eleven and kill you for what's in that drawer. There will be no more cash. And most crime will disappear because of that. Drugs will be legalized and most people will be controlled by some kind of a chemical substance or an electronic or chemical implant. Recently, in the Los Angeles Times, it had an article, 10 forecasts for the future decade. And one of those 10 forecasts was chemical or electronic implants to control individual behavior on a 24-hour basis. Understand what I'm talking about. The pet implant program is not for pets. It's an experiment to test the system that's going to be used on you. When the economy crashes, you're all in debt. Somebody's going to come to you and they're going to say, pay up or give us everything you own. And you're going to say, oh my God. And they're going to say, well, we have a solution for you. If you'll agree to join the New World Order and the New World Economic System and submit to our plans for you, we will let you keep these things. And we will refinance your debt. Only we're going to devalue the dollar by a factor of 10 or 100, whatever they decide. It could be either one or anything in between. But it will be at least 10. But they will not devalue your debt. Everybody understand what I'm saying? Your payments are going to be the same. They're going to tell you where to work, how many hours to work, and for every hour you work, you're going to get X number of credits. And those credits you can take and spend. They'll be deducted right through the computer. You will never see anything pass through your hands. How is that a prison? Simple. If they don't like you, they blank out your account in every computer except one square block. And that's the only place you can buy, sell, eat, sleep, get a drink of water, do anything. You go anywhere else, you're nobody. And nobody will help you because they know if they help you, their account will be zeroed out also. You see, they don't have to come and throw you in jail anymore in that kind of a system. They jail you with the computer. They can punish you with the computer. They can make you a non-person and let you die in the street with the computer. And nobody will help you because they know the same thing will happen to them. Now, I'm not going to end on a good note, and I'm not going to do what other people do. I'm not going to tell you that everything's going to be all right, and I'm not going to tell you to go read the Bible and see that you don't have to worry, because the Bible says, in the end, you know who wins, don't you? I'm here to tell you, if you don't stand up and fight it and stop it, you're not going to win, you're going to lose, you're going to be a slave. And I want you to go out of here mad and angry about that. I want you to be thinking about it. I want you to understand that the future is not bright. And if you want to be mad at me, that's okay. That's fine, as long as it gets you off your butt and gets you to helping, because that's what we need. We need your help desperately. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Go in peace, and God bless you.